Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and it's October 15th, 2025. And before we hit the ride, when I do the Wednesday videos and it's like riding up to the shop to pick up the books that I want, one of the things that I wanted to get out of this was actually talking about new books and not just the corner box classics. You know, the shop that I used to go to, there was like a group of pals that would kind of hang out on Wednesdays. And while I still talk to all of those dudes, we all have, you know, some have dropped out of comics, or we're all kind of going to different shops because the shop that we went to back then is no longer a shop. So I figured, I was thinking about it, and I was like, hey, instead of doing the Wednesday videos where it's just like, hey, this is what I picked up, and not really like talking about the books, I would, and here's the other thing. I know there are a lot of videos out there where it's like people out there doing their like hauls on Wednesday and reading the books. And I just, man, I got a 3-year-old, I got a wife, I got a job, I got stuff going on that's not just comics. And I like to not rush through the new comics. So like I'm usually wrapping up new comics because I'm also reading old comics at the same time. Like kind of Tuesday before the next Wednesday. So anyways, that's a very long explanation to be like, hey, I figured while this will not help me in any type of new subscribers or algorithm way, I would talk about picks of the week a week late, when no one cares, when the entire comic book community has moved on. That's when I'll be like, hey, I really liked that. So that's what I'm going to do. Before we hit the trails for the ride, I'll talk about some books from the previous week. So first book that I want to talk about is in last week's new Wednesday ride video. I talked about how I picked this book up and thought that it had to do with current continuity Spider-Man, and was like, but it doesn't, because I try to stay away from solicits and comic book news websites because I grew very tired of them like spoiling things on Tuesday night, or the fandom trash and stuff immediately Wednesday morning. Kind of bums me out. So I read this and loved it. It is 100% a Between the Raindrops, like Peter's at college. Just fantastic. Beautiful art by Pepe Perez. It's written by J. Michael Straczynski, so you know that's going to be fantastic. It opens up with like this really kind of super fun. Pete uses science and hilarity to take down Sandman, which is fantastic. And then it kind of like, he gets to school and he's in a class that like he's like way past like the class as far as smarts go. So he's sort of like checked out. And it's just kind of like, it's nice to see Pete back in college. It's nice now that I've read all of the 60s stuff up until what I'm in the Corner Box Classics right now, which is 1982. It's kind of nice to see the old gang. Gwen's there, MJ's there, Harry's there, and it's before, obviously Gwen is still alive. Harry's still there. So it's, it's kind of interesting seeing Pete interact with some teachers, and there is, there's like a hostage situation that happens in the book, and Pete goes and takes care of that. It's a funny thing because like where the hostage situation is at, he can't get to it by web swinging, so he has to like take the subway, and it's just kind of funny. So it's like classic Spider-Man stuff. The gang gets together at one point at a beach, and just like the comedy in the book by J. Michael Straczynski is really good and like classic Peter Parker and the gang. And there's also like a sadness to it, because at one point while they're all like hanging out around a bonfire on the beach, Gwen asks what everyone thinks that they're going to be doing in 10 years. And it's just kind of a like, we know what Gwen's going to be doing in 10 years. So it's sort of it was funny, it was charming, sad, kind of all at the same time. Classic Spider-Man tale. So if you like sat on this because you were like, oh, it doesn't tie into current continuity, don't. It was a lot of fun. Last year, J.M. DeMatteis did this Spider-Man kind of Between the Raindrops story called Shadow of the Goblin, and that was like one of my favorite books of last year. So there you have it. That was my favorite book of last week. An honorable mention goes to Amazing X-Men. I wasn't super taken by some of the Age of Revelation titles that I were hoping were going to be better. But this one seems to be kind of the main one. Mahmoud Asrar's art is always very pretty. So I enjoyed this book about as much as I thought I was going to. A book that I was really looking forward to, but wound up letting me down, was Long Shots. It's written by Gary Dugman, Jonathan Hickman. I had a lot of hope for it. Beautiful Dustin Weaver Mojo cover. I like the Mojo verse, but this was like, I love the original Innocenti Art Adams Long Shot miniseries. One of the first things I ever got in like a trade paperback, and I eventually got the single issues. Met Art Adams, met Innocenti, had them both sign it. Truly love that character. A lot based in like, you know, Long Shot's action figure was like one of my favorite toys from when I was a kid. So, you know, it's kind of like all wrapped up in nostalgia and this sort of thing that I grew up with. But, so I was looking forward to this because I like Long Shot. And I like the Mojoverse, but to me, Mojoverse is something that has to be done super deliberately and has to kind of like toe that meta like community line. Like, unfortunately, this just gets silly. And, like, I don't particularly like it when characters that aren't silly are, like, for instance, there's a, like, you know, they're putting together a team to do this television show in the Mojo world, led by Patsy Walker Hellcat. And so she has to like recruit a team, but they're like, you got to make sure you have an X-Men character and it can't be Glob Herman, blah blah blah, because, you know, we need to sell these books. And so she rolls up on Bishop, and he's practicing like catchphrases to say before he wastes people, and it's so out of character for the Bishop that and I mean, I know, like, if you were to go into the early 2000s, they really, really destroyed that character. But this was just dumb, and I love big, dumb, like, concept of comics. Like, big, dumb comics is, like, you know, this sillier and, like, more comic booky. But this was just dumb. Sometimes I hate it when stuff is written like knowing, I mean, just like Rhino in this is like a pill popper. Craven has like, he's like dehorned Rhino and is like using it like with a cheese grater, and Craven's just written to, it was just, this was not good. Long Shots was not good. And for a Hickman and Duggan written $4.99 comic book, I want them to take it seriously and not have it be like, look at us being wacky. Like, not into it. So the last book from last week that I'm going to talk about really quickly is Avengers 797. Mirrodin, the big bad from all of this, is revealed in the previous issue, and this is Kang. Like, basically, like, there's this, it's Kang drinking because he's like, and there's this great line in it where he's like, and now as I do every time I am defeated, and he stops himself from saying defeated, and he's like, suffer a momentary setback, which is spot on Kang. So he's sort of going through like who, it's him kind of figuring out who Mirrodin is, which, you know, Eureka, it's Kang. It's a different version of Kang. But the reason why I mentioned this book that I really enjoyed about what they did with it was there were certain points when Kang was thinking about things that have happened with the Mirrodin character, kind of showed a different vantage point of it, and kind of like did the editorial note of like, hey, this page is like continued in Timeless #1 from 2021, and this page like can be to be continued in Avengers #10. And so the kid in me that loves choose your own adventure books sort of thought that was kind of a cool thing that they did in this title. So I'm sure there were lots of like, oh geez, another version of Kang, but I thought that aspect of it and the time travelness of Kang was pretty interesting. So those were the highlights and lowlights of the previous week of comics for me. So now we are gonna bundle up because it's a chilly autumn day and pedal up to the shop to pick up our new books. So let's hit the trails. Alright, so we are back from taking our bike trip up to the comic shop to pick up our new books. Good time was had by all. And here we are to go through what I got. So first up, the thing I'm probably most excited about, which should come to no surprise to no one, is Unbreakable X-Men, written by Gail Simone. Uncanny right now. Uncanny and Fantastic Four are my two favorite books that Marvel's putting out right now. So it was no surprise that of the announced Age of Revelation titles, this one would be the one that I am most looking forward to. So let's hope that it lives up to that, and let's hope that this like 3-month divergence doesn't take the wind out of any of the current stories that I'm enjoying. Next is, because obviously I'm a sucker for X books, is Sinister 6. And I'm always hopeful when it comes to Sinister stuff, because I grew up with, late 80s, early 90s, and the cartoon Sinister, where he was like super menacing. And then somewhere in like the early 2000s, maybe it was like 2008, 2009, 2010, I don't know. Time is a construct. Brubaker turned, and I love Brubaker, but he turned like sinister into like British dandy Sinister, and I'm not a big fan of that particular Sinister. So I'm hoping this is more like cartoon voice, metallic, menacing Sinister. So we will see. Up next is a book again, Rogue Storm, a Storm and a Rogue book. I don't know. I like those two characters. I don't know anything about this because, again, I didn't read any solicits or any interviews or anything. But it's a continuation of the Storm book, which is one of the highlights of the current run of X books. So there's that. So I think that was all of the X books. So up next is Amazing Spider-Man number 978 with a pretty fun cover. Although I got to admit, I I see the web shooters outside of the costume, but I don't understand why he has ankle bracelets. That's a choice. But I have been drawn by Ed McGuinness. That's always fun. I like Ed McGuinness. The Joe Kelly run has been fun so far. Really been enjoying it. I didn't dislike the Zeb Wells run before that. I might dislike some of the characters in that run, Paul in particular. But I have not been an Amazing Spider-Man hater, but I am that this has definitely been, the book has been on the upswing since Joe Kelly took over. So it has been a highlight. Another book that I am jazzed for, I think this is the, what would it be called, the penultimate, I think, issue 8 of One World Under Doom. This has been a really fun, like, big mega event. Blood Hunt before it I enjoyed because of the ramifications of the end of that, of Doom becoming the Sorcerer Supreme and how he tricked Strange into becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. I really dug that. That made the whole event like worth it for me. I didn't buy into any of the tie-ins for that book, and I got a few, and I regret a couple of them. But I liked the Strange Academy one of the One World Under. That was a good one. But this has been a lot of fun, but it seems really drawn out. I know there was like a month that they took off as they launched like a new Fantastic Four book in the middle of it, and Ryan North was good enough to like make it all make sense and not like reveal the end of this while launching a new #1. So hats off to him for being able to pull that off. So that was good. So this has been pretty good. You know, if you haven't been picking it up and it comes out in trade, it's worth it. It's fun. I mean, it's a little heavy because like some of it feels, you know, like I try to escape the real world by reading comic books, and a little bit of the parallels are, you know, uncomfortable. But, you know, it is what it is. Comics have always been political. Up next, Captain America 775. This is still a weird one. I really need, like, if I ever meet Zdarsky, I'm going to be like, what? Because when this was, like, announced and I heard the rumblings of, like, oh, it's going to be this, like, Captain America before he was an Avenger, and he's going to be invading Latveria, and I was like, Chip Zdarsky written Captain America where he invades Latveria? Sign me up. But I didn't realize that it was going to be, like, a time sliding thing where, like, Cap is de-iced after 9/11. And so that has, like, my old comic book brain is just like, I don't get that. I don't get it. But it's a Zdarsky written Captain America, so even though that part kind of like rubs me the wrong way, I have been enjoying the book. And so, you know, maybe we'll snap out of that at some point. Picked up Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe #4 because I pre-ordered it, and I don't like to stick my shop with books that I change my mind on after I've pre-ordered them 3 months in advance, which is part of the reason that the comic book ordering system is completely jacked up, because I'm just not really, like, this is a fun, big, dumb comic, but I'm not a big enough Godzilla fan for this to be doing a ton for me, you know? I've enjoyed the first 3 issues of the title, but I'm sort of kind of in this phase right now. It's part of the reason why I'm doing the Corner Box Classics thing, is because, like, I have legitimately been buying back issues at dirt cons in cheap dollar bin boxes for gotta be hitting close to 35 years now, right? I'm gonna be 44 in a couple days. And you know, I've been in comics that entire time. And so the thing is like, I'm kind of like realizing as I get older, like, I gotta start reading like more of these than I accumulate. And so a lot of stuff now is becoming like, I'm trying to like slowly cut my pull list of weekly books and try to just keep stuff that I'm gonna like go back, stuff that's like so good that I'm like, oh man, I don't want to read that again, you know. And it's kind of the same thing with the classic stuff. Like if I'm chugging along and there's like a long stretch of like Avengers or, you know, FF or something where I'm like, this is not doing it for me. Or if there's a title that I I tracked down an entire run last year of like West Coast Avengers. And I've, you know, other than when they like tied into X-Men crossovers in the early 90s, like I don't really know anything. So it's like, I hope that I had a buddy. I hope I enjoy it. I had a buddy who recommended that I read New Warriors because he really liked New Warriors. And so I was able to piece together through, you know, cheap back issue bins a New Warriors run. And I enjoyed 50% of it, but like around issue 50 of that title, like when the, you know, first writer Fabian Nicieza leaves, it sort of like loses a little bit of its luster. So the idea is to kind of like go through my collection. It's why I'm doing it week by week, year by year, so I can read everything that I have, to kind of make a judgment call on what I want to do with those things. So if I could go back in time, while I am enjoying this, I don't know how much rereadability I have in this. So I think when it wraps up, I will pass this on to a Godzilla fan who will get more enjoyment out of it than I did. And I say this, those are all the books that were on my pull list, but then there was one that snuck in there, and I was like, this looks like fun. So I grabbed Fantastic Four and Gargoyles #1 because I didn't order this because it's, you know, got a $5.99 price tag, which is crazy. And I'm not fond of that, but thankfully I get a bit of a discount at my shop. But I was flipping through it and I was like, the art looks fun. I remember, I don't remember vividly, but I remember after school, if Gargoyles was on, you know, when I would run home from school, most kids my age at the time were like watching Saved by the Bell, but I was obsessed with Welcome Back, Kotter. I watched Welcome Back, Kotter was my love. Welcome Back. There's a picture of the whole gang over there in like the movie section of this room when I finally do the tour. Anyways, but if there were cartoons on, you know, obviously like I watched X-Men and Spider-Man and the Iron Man show and Batman the animated series when that was on, and I also enjoyed Gargoyles, and so I saw this and I was like, well, that'll be a day of decision, so I don't feel like if I pre-order it from the shop and they're stuck with my copy of it, that would make me feel bad, and I don't want to like stick my shop with anything. So I was like, that one I'm not going to pre-order, but if they get some copies of it and I flip through it, I will check it out. And so what wound up happening is I flipped through it. Art looks fun. It looks like they're taking on Diablo, which is a fun, like he has something to do with it. And he's a fun Fantastic Four villain that I like and wish Marvel Legends would do a figure of. And then the thing that sold me is in the Defenders book, Gargoyle, the character Gargoyle. I like, when I read Defenders for the first time, I like fell in love with Gargoyle. He's like an 86-year-old man who's now a gargoyle because he was like messing with the dark arts. That's fantastic, pure comic bliss. So he pops up in the storyline, obviously, because he's a gargoyle. So I was like, yeah, throw it in there. I'm in. And then while I was there, Henry grabbed a Bluey book, which is always exciting, so he was pretty jazzed about that. And then they were putting out a new box of dollar bins, and so I was there at the perfect time to be able to go through these. So I grabbed 6 books from this. So here we go. So I grabbed Amazing Spider-Man #161, which I already have a much nicer copy of this because Nightcrawler is my favorite, and this is the first time that Nightcrawler appears outside of X-Men. This is like right after Giant Size X-Men, but I was happy to find this because, and I will mention the next 2 books, they also had Uncanny X-Men 198 and 199, which are, you know, this is a fantastic Barry Windsor Smith story. This is a fantastic John Romita Jr. story. And if ever I find, like, I imagine if, as a dad, 2 things are going to happen. One day, Hank is going to be like, I hate comic. My dad used to take me to like car shows, and I'm not a car guy, right? I don't hate cars. I need one. I prefer to bike. Uh, but like, I'm not like a gearhead, you know? And so like I liked doing those things as a kid, but like it's not I wouldn't, you know. And so I imagine that at some point the kid's, you know, he's sort of like, he's his own dude when he came out already, you know, he's got his interest and so on and so forth. And right now he likes tagging along with me to the comic book store. But if he ever decides like, oh man, I'm really into this, like, kid, you're not getting my Uncanny X-Men until I'm dead. So, in the effort that he doesn't try to off me sooner rather than later so he can enjoy the Chris Claremont run, anytime I find 50-cent bin or dollar bin copies of Uncanny X-Men comics, I grab them so that if he's ever like, well, what about my comics? I can be like, here's a long box to start your collection. And then when I pass, you can sell all my comics and, you know, go on a vacation or something. So anyways, so these were like 3 X-Men adjacent titles where I was like, I'll throw those in the Henry box. Then I grabbed Iron Man 65, which I was like, why is this in a dollar bin? And then I saw that there's no, the back cover is gone, which I don't care about because like none of the pages are messed up. And then I picked up Cloak and Dagger #1 of the 4-issue miniseries. And the reason why I grabbed this is I imagine because it's a #1, it would probably go for more on the internet. And it's 83, which is coming up, and I enjoyed the cornerback classic of the introduction of Cloak and Dagger, and it is drawn by Rick Leonardi, who is one of my favorite pencilers. So I was like, of course I'll grab that for $1. And then the last book that I grabbed for $1 is this What If? What if the Avengers had become pawns of Korvac? And What If is one of those titles that I have like a smattering of issues. I believe one year my wife got me a bunch of the when the X-Men would appear in What Ifs one year, because I have this. My mom as a kid used to like full on, like, this is gonna drive people nuts when I do this. She would like roll up comics like this, and the internet is going crazy right now. And she would wrap them in tissue paper and stick them in my stocking at Christmas time. And that was sort of, I would get those like when I woke up way too early than the rest of the family, excited on Christmas. And I would open up those. And, you know, I would be kept occupied by reading comic books all night as opposed to trying to like wake everyone up so we could open up our Christmas presents. And so when Ashley and I first started dating years and years ago, she was asking me things that I missed since my mom was no longer with us. And I said one of the things that I missed was like that on Christmas, was like just getting comics wrapped up in rolled up tissue paper. And so every year she has found cheap dollar bin comic books that I would want and wrap them up in that exact same way. Yeah, and she hates rolling them up like that, but that's part of the joy of it for me. So there you have it. And they flatten out. I mean, come on. Anyways, so that's what I picked up this week. And those were my thoughts on a couple of the last week's books and a trip through the woods while we pedal up to the shop and check out some fall colors as we get closer and closer to Halloween, which is very exciting. So if you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe. That would be awesome. Comment if you think that me requesting that my wife roll up comic books and stuff them in a stocking is absolutely crazy. Or if you're like, I appreciate the dedication to childhood nostalgia. Sound off in the comments. Once again, subscribe. And I will be back a couple days to do a Cornerbox Classics with 3 titles from January 26th, 1982. Daredevil, Dazzler, and Marvel 2-in-1. And all 3 of them were a lot of fun, and I look forward to talking about them. So thanks for taking this ride with us, and I'll see you in a couple days. Bye.